The ground shook under Jake Morrison's boots as another explosion hit the mining station. Dust and smoke filled the air around him. He pressed his back against a broken wall and checked his rifle. Only half a clip left. "Morrison, where are you?" Commander Lisa Hayes's voice crackled through his radio. "Section 7, ma'am, still pinned down by enemy fire." Jake wiped sweat from his face. The battle had been going on for 3 hours now. The war between humans and the aliens called Zephyrians had lasted 10 years. Jake had been fighting for the last 2 of those years. He was good at his job. He knew how to use explosives and how to stay alive. But today felt different. Today felt worse. The Zephyrians were tall creatures with 4 arms and skin that looked like armor. They were strong and fast. They fought hard to protect their territory. The humans wanted the mining, rights to this planet. Both sides had lost many soldiers in this war. Jake heard footsteps coming closer. He looked around the corner of the wall. 3 Zephyrian soldiers were moving toward his position. Their weapons glowed with blue energy. He had seen what those weapons could do to a human body. "Contact! 3 enemies approaching from the north," he whispered into his radio. "Copy that. Hold your position. Help is coming," Lisa replied. Jake knew help might not come in time. He looked around for another way out. The mining station was mostly destroyed now. Broken machines and fallen beams were everywhere. Smoke made it hard to see very far. Then he heard something that made his blood run cold. It was a crying sound, not human crying. It was higher pitched and had a strange musical quality to it. But Jake knew what crying sounded like, no matter what made it. He moved carefully toward the sound. Behind a pile of broken metal, he saw something that shocked him. It was a small Zephyrian, much smaller than the soldiers he had been fighting. This one was maybe the size of a human child. Its skin was lighter than the adults, more gray than dark blue. It was definitely young. The small alien was trapped under a piece of heavy metal. It was crying and trying to push the metal away, but it was not strong enough. Jake could see that one of its 4 arms was hurt. Jake stared at the creature. This was the enemy. His people were at war with this thing's people. He should walk away. He should let it stay trapped. That would be one less enemy to fight when it grew up. But the crying got louder. The small alien was scared and in pain. Jake thought about his little sister back on Earth. She was about the same size as this creature. What if she was trapped and hurt and no one helped her? The sound of footsteps got closer. The Zephyrian soldiers were almost here. Jake had to decide quickly. Help the enemy child and risk his own life, or leave it and save himself. The creature looked up at him with large, dark eyes. Even though it was alien, Jake could see fear in those eyes. Universal fear that any child might have when they were hurt and alone. Jake made his choice. He put down his rifle and grabbed the heavy metal piece. He pulled hard and managed to lift it enough for the small alien to crawl out. The creature looked at him with surprise. It stopped crying for a moment. "Go," Jake whispered, pointing away from where the soldiers were coming. "Get out of here!" The small alien seemed to understand. It started to move away, favoring its hurt arm. But then Jake heard a sound that made his heart stop. It was the high-pitched whistle of a human plasma grenade. Jake looked and saw the small metal ball rolling across the ground toward them. It had bounced off a wall and was heading straight for the alien child. In 3 seconds, it would explode. The blast would kill anything within 10 feet. The small alien saw it too. It tried to run, but its hurt arm made it slow. It would not get away in time. Jake did not think. He just moved. He threw himself forward and covered the small creature with his own body. He wrapped his arms around it and pressed his armored chest against its back. He closed his eyes and waited for the explosion. The grenade went off. The blast was louder than anything Jake had ever heard. Fire and metal pieces hit his back armor. The force threw him forward. Pain shot through his whole body. His armor cracked and he felt something warm running down his back. Blood. For a moment, everything was quiet except for a ringing in his ears. Jake tried to move but could not. His back felt like it was on fire, but under him the small alien was moving. It was alive. Jake rolled to the side with great effort. The creature sat up and looked at him. Its dark eyes were wide with shock. It reached out with one of its good arms and touched Jake's face very gently. Then it made a soft sound, almost like a thank you. "Go," Jake whispered again. "Before they come back." The small alien stood up slowly. It looked at Jake one more time, then ran away into the smoke and dust. Jake watched it disappear. Then he closed his eyes and tried to stay awake. He heard more. Footsteps. Human footsteps this time. His squad had found him. "Morrison! What happened?" It was Sergeant Tony Clark. "Explosion," Jake said weakly. "Got caught in the blast." Tony knelt beside him and checked his wounds. "We need to get you to medical now. You're hurt bad." As they carried him away, Jake looked back at where the small alien had been trapped. He wondered if it would make it back to its people safely. He wondered if he had just saved the life of a future enemy soldier. But when he remembered those frightened eyes looking up at him, he knew he had made the right choice. Some things were bigger than war. Some things were more important than picking sides. Jake had protected a child. That was what humans did. That was what made them different. He just did not know yet how much that one choice would change everything. Jake woke up in the medical bay 3 days later. His back was wrapped in white bandages and every movement hurt. The room smelled like antiseptic and metal. Machines beeped softly around his bed. "You're awake," said a woman's voice. Jake turned his head and saw Commander Lisa Hayes sitting in a chair beside his bed. She looked tired and worried. "How long was I out?" Jake asked. His throat was dry and his voice sounded rough. 3 days. The doctors had to remove metal pieces from your back. You were lucky. A few inches lower and it would have hit your spine." Lisa poured water from a pitcher into a cup and handed it to him. Jake drank the water slowly. It helped his throat. "What happened to the mission?" "We secured the mining station. The Zephyrians pulled back after the battle. We won." Lisa paused and looked at him carefully. "Jake, I need to ask you something. What really happened when you got hurt?" Jake felt his stomach get tight. He had been expecting this question. "I told Sergeant Clark I got caught in an explosion." "That's not what the battle recordings show." Lisa pulled out a small device and set it on the table beside his bed. "This is from your helmet camera. It shows everything until the blast damaged it." Jake stared at the device. He had forgotten about the cameras they all wore. Every soldier had one to record what happened in battle. He was caught. "The recording shows you helping an enemy child," Lisa continued. "It shows you throwing yourself over it to protect it from a grenade blast, your own grenade, thrown by your own people." Jake closed his eyes. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet. Some people think you're a hero. Others think you committed treason. Earth Command wants answers." Lisa leaned forward. "Why did you do it, Jake?" "Why risk your life for an enemy?" Jake thought about how to explain it. It was just a kid, Commander. It was hurt and scared. I couldn't just walk away. It was an alien. The enemy. We're at war with them. It was a child, Jake said firmly. War or no war, it was still a child. Lisa was quiet for a long moment. The generals are not happy. General Ryan Burke wants to court-martial you. He says you gave aid to the enemy during combat. What do you think? I think you did what any decent person would do. But that doesn't mean everyone will see it that way. Lisa stood up. Get some rest. We'll deal with this when you're better. After she left, Jake lay in bed thinking. He knew his actions might get him in trouble. But he also knew he would do the same thing again. Some things were right, even if they were against the rules. Meanwhile, far away on a Zephyrian ship, a warrior named Zixthera was holding her child. The small being's name was Kethra, and its arm was wrapped in healing cloth. Kethra was trying to tell its mother about what happened. The Star Warrior had kind eyes, Kethra said in the musical Zephyrian language. It protected me from the fire death. It put its own body over mine. Zixthera listened carefully. In Zephyrian culture, protecting another's child was the most sacred act possible. It created a bond called Veltar Keth, the blood shield bond. This bond was more important than war, more important than species differences. Are you sure, little one? A human protected you? Yes, Mother. The Star Warrior saved my life. It was hurt badly because of me. Zixthera felt something she had not expected. Gratitude toward a human. She had lost her mate in this war. She hated the humans for that. But one of them had risked everything to save her only child. According to the old laws, she now owed this human a life debt. The Veltar Keth must be honored, even between enemies. She had to find this human and repay the debt. But first, she had to learn who he was. Back in the human medical bay, Jake was getting visitors. Some were friends who came to see how he was doing. Others were officials who wanted to ask him questions. Dr. Amy Watson checked his wounds every day. You're healing well, she told him, but you'll have scars, and your back will probably hurt for a while. I can live with that, Jake said. Sergeant Tony Clark came to visit too. The guys in the squad are proud of you, Morrison. What you did took guts. Thanks, Tony. But be careful. Some of the higher-ups are really angry. They're saying you went against orders. Jake nodded. He knew he was in trouble, but he also started getting messages from people on other bases. Some soldiers had heard about what he did. Many of them supported him. They said he showed what humans were really like. Commander Lisa Hayes came back a week later. Jake was sitting up in bed now and could move around a little. I have news, she said. The media found out about the recording. It's all over the news networks. People on Earth are calling you a hero. And the generals? Still angry. But the public support is making them think twice about punishing you too harshly. Lisa sat down. There's something else. We're getting strange signals from Zephyrian space. They're asking about you. About me? How do they even know who I am? We don't know. But they're using diplomatic channels. They want to talk. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. What do they want? We're not sure. But it might have something to do with what you did. In their culture, protecting someone's child is apparently a big deal. Over the next few weeks, Jake got stronger. His back still hurt, but he could walk around the base. He also started learning more about Zephyrian culture. The base had experts who studied the enemy to help with war planning. They have very strict honor codes, explained Dr. Helen Brooks, a cultural specialist. Family is the most important thing to them. Protecting children, especially someone else's children, is considered the highest form of honor. So what I did might actually mean something to them? It might mean everything to them. If what we understand is correct, you may have created what they call a Veltar Keth. It's like a sacred bond. They would be required to honor it, even during wartime. Jake thought about the small alien he had protected. Somewhere out there, it was probably safe with its family. That made him feel good, even if it might cause him problems. The questions from his superiors continued. Some days it felt like he was being interrogated rather than helped. But Jake stuck to his story. He had protected a child because it was the right thing to do. He would not apologize for that. As the days passed, the diplomatic signals from Zephyrian space got stronger. They were definitely asking about Jake. They wanted to meet with him. The human government was not sure what to do about it. Jake just waited and healed. He had no idea that his simple act of protecting a child was about to change the course of the entire war. 6 months had passed since the battle at the mining station. Jake was back on duty, but his life had changed completely. The scars on his back had healed, but they still hurt sometimes. More importantly, he had become famous across human space. The story of the soldier who protected an enemy child had spread everywhere. Some people called him a hero. Others called him a traitor. But everyone knew his name. Jake tried to do his job normally, but it was hard. Reporters wanted to interview him. Politicians wanted to use his story for their own purposes. Military leaders watched everything he did very carefully. Commander Lisa Hayes had been promoted and was now in charge of diplomatic security. She still looked out for Jake when she could. "The Zephyrians are still asking about you," she told him one day. They were sitting in her office on the space station Harmony Point. This was a neutral place where both sides sometimes met to talk about prisoner exchanges or temporary ceasefires. "What do they want exactly?" Jake asked. "We're not sure. But their requests are getting more formal. They're using their highest diplomatic language. Whatever they want, it's important to them." That afternoon, everything changed. A Zephyrian delegation arrived at Harmony Point. This was unusual because the two sides rarely met face to face. When they did, it was usually to argue about territory or exchange prisoners. But this time was different. The Zephyrians had sent their most important diplomat, and they had brought something unexpected. They had brought a child. Jake was in the station's cafeteria when the alarms went off. All humans were ordered to stay in secure areas while the Zephyrian ship docked. Jake watched through a window as the alien ship attached itself to the station. The ship was beautiful in a strange way. It was long and curved, with a surface that seemed to change color in the light. Jake had only seen Zephyrian ships when they were shooting at him. This was the first time he could really look at one. "All diplomatic personnel report to conference. Room 1, came an announcement over the speakers. Lisa came to get Jake an hour later. She looked nervous and excited at the same time. "They want to see you," she said. "Me? Why?" "They say they have something that belongs to you. Jake, I think. The child they brought might be the one you saved." Jake's heart started beating faster. He had thought about that small alien many times over the past 6 months. He had wondered if it had made it home safely. He had wondered if it remembered him. "What do they want from me?" "We're about to find out. But Jake, be careful. This could be some kind of trap." They walked through the station's corridors to the diplomatic section. Jake had never been in this part of Harmony Point before. Everything was cleaner and more formal here. Human and alien flags hung side by side in the hallways. Conference room 1 was large and round, with a big table in the middle. On one side sat 3 human diplomats, including Ambassador Peter Collins, the chief negotiator for Earth. On the other side sat 3 Zephyrians. Jake had never seen Zephyrians up close when they were not trying to kill him. They were even more impressive than he had remembered. The largest one was nearly 8 feet tall with dark blue skin that looked like natural armor. It had 4 powerful arms and large, intelligent eyes. But what caught Jake's attention was the small figure sitting next to the large Zephyrian. It was definitely a child with lighter gray skin and smaller arms. When it saw Jake, its eyes went wide. "Kethra," the small one said in a musical voice. It pointed at Jake with one of its arms. The large Zephyrian looked at Jake carefully. "You are the one called Jake Morrison?" Jake was surprised to hear it speak English, even though the word sounded strange in its voice. "Yes, I am. I am Zixthara, warrior of the Velkan clan. This is my offspring, Kethra." The alien gestured to the child. 6 of your months ago, you performed an act that my people call Veltar Keth. You protected my child with your own body. Jake looked at the small alien. It was definitely the same one he had saved. It was bigger now, and its hurt arm seemed to be working fine. But those eyes were the same. "I remember," Jake said simply. "In our culture, the protection of another's offspring creates a sacred bond. You risked your life for my child. You took wounds that were meant for Kethra. This creates a debt that must be repaid." Ambassador Collins leaned forward. "What kind of debt?" Zixthara turned to look at the human diplomat, but then looked back at Jake. "According to our ancient laws, I must perform the ritual of Kethvalar. I must either serve this human until my death, or offer him a place of honor in my clan." The room became very quiet. Jake could hear his own heartbeat. This was not what anyone had expected. "You want to serve me?" Jake asked. "It is not what I want. It is what I must do. The Veltar Keth cannot be ignored, even between enemies. You saved my child. I owe you a life debt." General Ryan Burke, who had been sitting quietly, suddenly spoke up. "This is ridiculous. We're at war with these creatures. This soldier was just doing his job." Zixthara turned to look at the general. Her 4 arms moved in what might have been a threatening gesture. "Your soldier did not do his job. His job was to kill my people. Instead, he chose to protect my offspring. He chose mercy over duty. And that's exactly why he should be court-martialed," the general replied. "Burke, that's enough," Ambassador Collins said firmly. He looked at Zixthara. "What exactly does this ritual involve?" "If Jake Morrison accepts, he becomes Kethra's honorary guardian. In our culture, this means he has all the rights and responsibilities of clan membership. He becomes family." Jake stared at the large alien. "You want to make me part of your family, even though we're enemies?" "The Veltar Keth is more important than war. You proved that when you protected my child. Now I must prove it too." The small alien, Kethra, suddenly got up from its chair and walked around the table to where Jake was sitting. It looked up at him with those large, dark eyes and made a soft sound. "What is it saying?" Jake asked. "It is thanking you," Zixthara replied. "It remembers you. It has been telling everyone about the star warrior with kind eyes who saved its life." Jake felt something strange happening in his chest. This small being had been thinking about him for 6 months, just like he had been thinking about it. Even though they were different species, they had shared something important. If I accept this ritual, what happens then? You become part of our clan, you gain the protection of our warriors, and I serve as your guardian until the debt is repaid or until death takes me. General Burke stood up angrily. This is insane. We cannot allow a human soldier to join an alien clan. It would be treason. But Ambassador Collins was thinking. Jake could see it in his eyes. Actually, General, this might be exactly what we need. This could be the beginning of real peace talks. Peace talks? Burke laughed harshly. With these monsters? Zixthara's eyes turned toward the general. I have lost many friends to your kind, human. My mate died fighting your soldiers. I have reason to hate you all. But this one, she gestured to Jake, showed me that humans are capable of honor. Perhaps there is hope for understanding between our peoples. Jake looked around the room. Everyone was staring at him, waiting for his answer. The decision was his to make. He thought about the small alien crying under the metal beam. He thought about the moment when he threw himself over its body to protect it from the explosion. He had not thought about politics or war or peace talks then. He had just done what felt right. I accept, Jake said quietly. The room erupted in voices. Some people were angry, some were excited, some were confused. But through all the noise, Jake heard one sound clearly. It was Kethra, making a happy musical sound that might have been laughter. For the first time in months, Jake smiled. 2 weeks later, Jake found himself on a transport ship heading to the Zephyrian homeworld. He had never imagined he would visit an alien planet, especially not as a guest instead of an invader. The ship was unlike anything humans had built. The walls seemed to be made of living metal that pulsed gently with light. The air smelled different, too, with a sweet scent that reminded Jake of flowers he could not name. Zixthara had explained the journey to him carefully. The ritual of Keth Valor must be performed on our homeworld of Velkaris. It is ancient law. You will be tested, but not in combat. You must prove your understanding of our values. Jake was nervous. He had been studying Zephyrian culture for 2 weeks, but there was so much he did not understand. Their society was built around family clans and honor codes that went back thousands of years. What if I fail the tests? He had asked. Then you return to your people and the debt remains unpaid. But I do not think you will fail. You have already shown the most important quality, the willingness to protect the innocent. Kethra was on the ship too. The young alien had grown attached to Jake during their time together on Harmony Point. It followed him around and tried to teach him words in the Zephyrian language. Jake was getting better at understanding the musical sounds they made when they spoke. Jake, friend, Kethra said, using the English words it had learned. Homeworld pretty. You like? I hope so, Jake replied, making the hand gesture that meant agreement in Zephyrian culture. When they arrived at Velkaris, Jake was amazed. The planet was beautiful in a way that Earth could never be. The sky was purple instead of blue, and there were 3 moons visible during the day. The cities were built into living trees that were hundreds of feet tall. Thousands of Zephyrians had gathered to watch Jake's arrival. Many of them had never seen a human before except in battle. Jake felt nervous walking among them. They were all so much taller than he was, and their 4 arms made them look powerful and dangerous. But something surprising happened. As Jake walked through the crowd with Zixthara and Kethra, many of the aliens made a gesture of respect. They crossed their forearms over their chests and bowed their heads slightly. "They honor you," Zixthera explained. "Word of your deed has spread throughout our world. Many have heard how you protected Kethra." The ritual took place in a great hall carved from the inside of a massive tree. The walls glowed with natural light, and the ceiling was so high that Jake could barely see it. Hundreds of Zephyrians filled the space, all watching as Jake was led to the center. An old Zephyrian with pale, almost white skin came forward. This was Elder Vectar, the leader of Zixthara's clan. Its forearms were covered with scars, and its voice was deep and commanding. "Human Jake Morrison," the elder said in careful English. "You stand before the Velkan clan to undergo the ritual of Kethvalar. Do you understand what this means?" "I understand that I will become family," Jake replied. "I understand that I will have duties to protect and serve the clan, especially Kethra." "Good. The ritual has 3 parts. First, you must show understanding of our history. Second, you must prove your commitment to protection over destruction. Third, you must demonstrate that you can put the needs of family above your own needs." Jake nodded, though his mouth felt dry. The first test was about knowledge. Elder Vectar asked Jake questions about Zephyrian culture, their values, and their history. Jake had studied hard, and he was able to answer most of the questions correctly. When he made mistakes, the elder corrected him gently. "You have learned much in a short time," the elder said. "This shows respect for our ways." The second test was more difficult. Jake was taken to a training area where young Zephyrians learned to fight. But instead of being asked to battle, Jake was given different challenges. In one challenge, he had to protect a group of young aliens from simulated dangers without using any weapons. In another, he had to make decisions about how to help people who were in trouble. Each test was designed to see if Jake would choose protection over violence. The hardest moment came when Jake was shown a recording of a battle where Zephyrian soldiers had killed human troops. The elder watched Jake's face carefully. "These warriors killed your people," Elder Vectar said. "What would you do to them?" Jake's first instinct was anger. He had friends who had died in this war. But then he thought about why he was here. He thought about Kethra and the choice he had made to protect rather than destroy. "I would try to understand why they fought," Jake said slowly. "I would look for ways to make peace, so that no more people on either side would have to die." The elder nodded approvingly. The third test was the most personal. Jake was asked to spend time with different Zephyrian families, including some who had lost members in the war. He had to show that he could care about their problems and put their needs before his own comfort. This was hard because some of the families were angry about the war. They had lost children, parents, and friends to human weapons. But Jake listened to their stories and tried to understand their pain. He helped with their daily tasks and learned about their lives. One family had lost a young adult in the same battle where Jake had saved Kethra. The mother was named Velnina, and she was very sad and angry. "Why should I accept a human into our clan?" she asked Jake directly. "Your people killed my child." Jake did not try to make excuses. "I'm sorry for your loss," he said. "I can't bring back your child or undo the pain this war has caused. But maybe I can help make sure that other families don't have to go through what you're going through." Velnina stared at him for a long time. Then she said something that surprised him. "You speak with honesty. Most warriors, human or Zephyrian, only speak of victory and honor. You speak of preventing suffering." Over the following days, Jake noticed something changing. The families he visited began to treat him differently. They stopped seeing him as just a human soldier and started seeing him as someone who genuinely cared about their well-being. During this time, Jake also learned more about Zix-Thara's story. She had indeed lost her mate in the war, just as she had said. But Jake discovered that her mate had died trying to protect human civilians who had been caught in a battle. Like Jake, Zix-Thara's family believed in protecting the innocent, even if they were enemies. "That is why your action meant so much to me," Zix-Thara explained one evening. "When you protected Kethra, you showed the same values that my mate died for. You proved that honor exists on both sides of this war." The final part of the ritual took place on the 7th day. Jake was brought back to the Great Hall, where all the families he had visited were waiting. Elder Vectar asked each family to speak about their experience with Jake. One by one, they stood up and told the gathered crowd about the human who had listened to their stories, helped with their work, and shown genuine concern for their problems. Even Velnina, who had been angry at first, spoke in favor of Jake. "This human has shown us that not all of his kind are driven by hate," she said. "He has proven that he values life over victory." When all the families had spoken, Elder Vectar turned to Jake. "You have passed all the tests. You have shown understanding, commitment to protection, and the ability to put family needs above your own. Do you accept the responsibilities of clan membership?" "I do," Jake said. "Then, by the ancient laws and in the presence of the Velkan clan, I declare you Jake Morrison Velkan, guardian of Kethra and brother to all who bear our name." The hall erupted in a sound Jake had never heard before. It was Zephyrian cheering, a musical roar that made the walls vibrate. Kethra ran to Jake and hugged him with all four arms. Zix-Thara approached and performed a formal gesture that marked him as family. But the most meaningful moment came when Velnina approached him. She carried something in her hands, a piece of jewelry made from metal and stones. "This belonged to my child," she said. "I want you to have it. Wear it to remember that peace is possible. But it requires people like you who are willing to cross the barriers between us." Jake took the jewelry with shaking hands. It was beautiful and felt warm to the touch. More importantly, it represented something he had never expected: forgiveness and hope from someone who had every reason to hate him. As the celebration continued around him, Jake realized that his life had changed forever. He was no longer just a human soldier. He was now part of an alien family, bound by bonds that went deeper than species or politics. And for the first time since the war began, Jake truly believed that peace might be possible. Jake's return to human space created chaos. News of his acceptance into a Zephyrian clan spread across every human world within days. Some people called him a traitor who had joined the enemy. Others saw him as a bridge to peace that they had all been hoping for. The military was divided. General Ryan Burke still wanted Jake court-martialed for fraternizing with the enemy. But Admiral Sarah Green, the highest-ranking officer in the fleet, saw things differently. "Morrison might be our best chance for ending this war," she told the military council. 10 years of fighting has cost us millions of lives and countless resources. If this ritual thing can lead to peace talks, we have to try it. Commander Lisa, Hayes had been promoted again and was now in charge of the new Department of Alien Relations. Her first job was to figure out how to handle Jake's unique situation. "Technically, you're still a human citizen and a member of our military," she explained to Jake during a meeting on Harmony Point, but you're also apparently a member of an alien clan with duties and responsibilities we don't fully understand. I'm, still the same person, Jake replied. I still want to serve humanity, but I also have obligations to Kethra and the Velkan clan now. And that's exactly what makes you valuable. You understand both sides better than anyone. Zixthera had returned to human space with Jake. She was now serving as an unofficial ambassador, though her real purpose was to fulfill her life debt to Jake. This created a strange situation where a Zephyrian warrior was living on human military bases and attending human strategy meetings. Your leaders think very differently than ours, she observed to Jake one day. They focus on politics and territory. We focus on honor and family. But both sides want the same thing: safety for their people. Jake had an idea. What if we could create new rules for how our peoples interact? Rules that both sides could respect. What kind of rules? Rules that protect families and civilians. Rules that prevent the kind of situation where Kethra got trapped in a battle zone. Together, Jake and Zixthera began working on what they called the protection protocols. These were guidelines for how human and Zephyrian forces should behave during conflicts to minimize harm to non-combatants. But not everyone wanted peace. On both sides, there were groups that profited from the war or believed that the other species should be completely destroyed. The first sign of trouble came when Jake was visiting a human colony world called New Boston. He was there to speak at a peace rally when explosions rocked the city center. The attackers were human extremists who believed that anyone supporting peace with aliens was a traitor. Jake was caught in the middle of the chaos. As buildings burned around him, he found himself protecting Zephyrian civilians who had come to hear his speech. Once again, he was using his body to shield aliens from human weapons. Zixthera fought alongside him, her four arms moving with deadly precision as she defended human civilians from the extremist attackers. Together, they managed to evacuate most of the people before security forces arrived. We're stronger when we work together, Jake realized as they caught their breath after the battle. Yes, Zixthera agreed. But there are those on both sides who fear our cooperation. She was right. A week later, Zephyrian extremists attacked a joint research station where human and alien scientists were working together on medical projects. This time, Jake and Zixthera had to fight against Zephyrian warriors who considered Zixthera a traitor for working with humans. The attacks made Jake angry, but they also made him more determined. Each act of violence proved that the extremists were afraid of what peace might bring. They were afraid of losing their power and purpose. Fear makes people do terrible things, Jake told Kethra during one of their regular video calls. The young alien was still on the home world, but it was learning to speak better English and followed Jake's activities closely. Fear is why war continues, Kethra replied in its musical voice. But love is stronger than fear. You showed that when you protected me. Jake realized that Kethra, despite being young, understood something important. The war continued because people were afraid of each other. But individual acts of courage and compassion could overcome that fear. This gave Jake another idea. Instead of just working on military protocols, what if they could create opportunities for ordinary humans and Zephyrians to meet and interact peacefully? He proposed this to Admiral Green and the Zephyrian High Council. We need people to see each other as individuals, not as faceless enemies. We need more stories like mine and Kethra's. The result was the Cultural Exchange Program. Volunteers from both species would live together on neutral worlds, sharing their knowledge and building relationships. It was risky, but both governments agreed to try it. Jake and Zixathara became the directors of the first exchange station, built on a new world called Haven. Families from both species came to live there, work together, and learn from each other. It was not always easy. There were misunderstandings, arguments, and cultural conflicts, but there were also breakthroughs. Human children learned to communicate with young Zephyrians. Adult scientists from both species made discoveries they never could have made alone. Most importantly, friendships formed, real relationships between individuals who had once been enemies. But the extremists were not finished. They had been planning something bigger than random attacks. They wanted to restart the war in a way that would make peace impossible. The plan was discovered by accident when Jake was reviewing security reports from both human and Zephyrian intelligence services. Someone was planning to attack both the human capital world and the Zephyrian homeworld at the same time, using weapons that would make it look like each side had betrayed the peace process. It's a false flag operation, Jake realized. They want to make both sides think the other attacked first. Jake and Zixathara had to act quickly. They could not use normal diplomatic channels because they did not know who to trust. Instead, they used their unique position as members of both societies to gather intelligence and prepare countermeasures. The climax came when the extremist attacks began. Jake found himself coordinating the defense of the human capital, while Zixathara did the same on the Zephyrian homeworld. They communicated constantly, sharing information and making sure that both sides understood what was really happening. The key moment came when Jake had to convince human military leaders not to retaliate against Zephyrian forces, even though it looked like aliens were attacking Earth. At the same time, Zixathara had to persuade her people not to respond to what appeared to be a human assault on their homeworld. "Trust me," Jake pleaded with Admiral Green over a communication link while explosions lit up the sky behind him. "This is not what it looks like. Zixathara is fighting the same kind of extremists on her end. If we attack each other now, we're giving them exactly what they want." It worked. Both sides held their fire long enough for Jake and Zixathara to expose the real attackers. The extremists were revealed to be a mixed group of humans and Zephyrians who had been working together, in secret to restart the war. When the truth came out, it had an unexpected effect. People on both sides were shocked to learn that their own extremists had been cooperating with enemy extremists. It proved that the real division was not between species, but between those who wanted peace and those who wanted conflict. The failed attacks became a turning point. Public opinion on both sides shifted strongly toward peace. The extremists had overplayed their hand and exposed themselves. Within months, formal peace negotiations began. Jake and Zixathara served as special advisors, helping both sides understand each other's perspectives and find compromises that honored everyone's values. The final peace treaty was signed on Haven, the exchange world that Jake and Zixathara had helped create. Representatives from both species gathered in a ceremony that would have been impossible just a year earlier. Jake stood with his human colleagues and his Zephyrian clan family as the documents were signed. Kethra was there too, now fluent in both languages and serving as a translator for the younger attendees. "You did it," Commander Lisa Hayes said to Jake after the ceremony. "You actually helped end a 10-year war." "We all did it," Jake replied. "Everyone who chose to see past the fear and hatred, everyone who decided that protecting children was more important than winning battles." Zixathara approached them. Her life debt to Jake finally fulfilled. But instead of leaving, she had decided to stay and continue working for peace between their peoples. "The Veltar Keth is complete," she said formally. "But the bonds of family remain. We are still clan." Jake smiled. Always. Years later, when historians wrote about the end of the Human-Zephyrian War, they would focus on the diplomatic negotiations, the economic factors, and the military strategic considerations. But those who lived through it knew the truth. Peace had begun with a single moment of compassion. One human soldier had seen a frightened child and chosen to protect it instead of walking away. That choice had created ripples that spread across two civilizations and changed the course of history. Jake Morrison had become a hero not because he had destroyed his enemies, but because he had saved one of them. He had proven that the greatest strength was not the power to kill, but the courage to protect. And in the end, that had made all the difference. Kethra grew up spee,